Talk to anyone is the hard way, but how to make anyone charismatic on you is harder than talk to anyone. Here is the solution. This will help you.
Chapter 15. Never the Naked City. Don't drop a frozen steak on their platter. You wouldn't dream of going to a party naked, and I hope you wouldn't dream of letting your conversation be exposed, naked and defenseless against the two inevitable assaults, where are you from and what do you do? When asked these questions, most people, like clunking a frozen steak on a china platter, drop a brick of frozen geography or baffling job title on the asker's conversational platter. Then they slap on the muzzle. You're at a convention. Everyone you meet will, of course, ask, "And where are you from?" When you give them the short-form Naked City answer, "Oh, I'm from Muscatine, Iowa," or Millinocket, Maine, Winnemucca, Nevada, or anywhere they haven't heard of, what can you expect except a blank stare? Even if you're a relatively big city slicker from Denver, Colorado, Detroit, Michigan, or San Diego, California, you'll receive a panicked look from all but American history professors. They're rapidly racking their brains thinking, what do I say next? Even the names of world-class burgs like New York, London, Paris, and Los Angeles inspire less than riveting responses. When I tell people I'm from New York City, what are they expected to say? Duh, seen any good muggings lately? Do humanity and yourself a favor. Never ever give just a one-sentence response to the question, where are you from? Give the asker some fuel for his tank, some fodder for his trough. Give the hungry communicator something to conversationally nibble on. All it takes is an extra sentence or two about your city, some interesting fact, some witty observation to hook the asker into the conversation. Several months ago, a trade association invited me to be its keynote speaker on networking and teaching people to be better conversationalists. Just before my speech, I was introduced to Mrs. Devlin, who was the head of the association. "How do you do?" she asked. "How do you do?" I replied. Then Mrs. Devlin smiled, anxiously awaiting a sample of my stimulating conversational expertise. I asked her where she was from. She plunked a frozen Columbus, Ohio, and a big expectant grin on my platter. I had to quickly thaw her answer into digestible conversation. My mind thrashed into action. Leil's thought pattern. Gulp, Columbus, Ohio. I've never been there. Criminy. What do I know about Columbus? I know a fellow named Jeff, a successful speaker who lives there, but Columbus is too big, and besides, only kids play the do you know so-and-so game. My panicked silent search continued. I think it's named after Christopher Columbus, but I'm not sure, so I better keep my mouth shut on that one. 4 or 5 other possibilities raced through my mind, but I rejected them all as too obvious, too adolescent, or too off the wall. I realized by now that seconds had passed, and Mrs. Devlin was still standing there with a slowly dissipating smile on her face. She was waiting for me, the expert, who within the hour was expected to teach her trade association lessons on scintillating conversation, to spew forth words of wit or wisdom. "Oh, Columbus, gee," I mumbled in desperation, watching her face fall into the worried expression of a patient being asked by the surgeon, knife poised in hand, "Where's your appendix?" I never came up with stimulating conversation on Columbus. But just then, under the knife, I created the following technique for posterity. I call it Never the Naked City. Technique 15. Never the Naked City. Whenever someone asks you the inevitable "and where are you from?", never, ever unfairly challenge their powers of imagination with a one-word answer. Learn some engaging facts about your hometown that conversational partners can comment on. Then, when they say something clever in response to your bait, they think you're a great conversationalist. Different bait for shrimp or sharks. A fisherman uses different bait to bag bass or bluefish, and you will obviously throw out different conversational bait to snag simple shrimp or sophisticated sharks. Your hook should relate to the type of person you're speaking with. I'm originally from Washington, D.C. If someone at, say, an art gallery asked me where I was from, I might answer Washington, D.C., designed, by the same city planner who designed Paris. This opens the conversational possibilities to the artistry of city planning, Paris, other cities' plans, European travel, and so forth. At a social party of singles, I'd opt for another answer. I'm from Washington, D.C. The reason I left is there were 7 women to every man when I was growing up. Now the conversation can turn to the ecstasy or agony of being single, the perceived lack of desirable men everywhere, even flirtatious possibilities. In a political group, I'd cast a current fact from the constantly evolving political face of Washington, D.C. No need to speculate on the multitude of conversational possibilities that unlocks. Where do you get your conversational bait? Start by phoning the Chamber of Commerce or Historical Society of your town. Search the World Wide Web and click on your town or open an old-fashioned encyclopedia, all rich sources for future stimulating conversations. Learn some history, geography, business statistics, or perhaps a few fun facts to tickle your future friend's funny bones. The Devlin debacle inspired further research. The minute I got home, I called the Columbus Chamber of Commerce and the Historical Society. Say you too are from Columbus, Ohio, and your new acquaintance lays it on you. Where are you from? When you were talking with a business person, your answer could be, I'm from Columbus, Ohio. You know, many major corporations do their product testing in Columbus because it's so commercially typical. In fact, it's been called the most American city in America. They say if it booms or bombs in Columbus, it booms or bombs nationally. Talking with someone with a German last name? Tell her about Columbus's historic German village, with the brick streets and the wonderful 1850s-style little houses. It's bound to inspire stories of the old country. Your conversation partner's surname is Italian? Tell him Genoa, Italy is Columbus's sister city. Talking with an American history buff? Tell him that Columbus was indeed named after Christopher Columbus and that a replica of the Santa Maria is anchored in the Scioto River. Talking with a student? Tell her there are 5 universities in Columbus. The possibilities continue. You suspect your conversation partner has an artistic bent? You threw out casually. Columbus is the home of artist George Bellows. Columbusites, prepare some tasty snacks for askers even if you know nothing about them. Here's a goodie. Tell them you always have to say Columbus, Ohio, because in the U.S. there is also a Columbus, Arkansas, Columbus, Georgia, Columbus, Indiana, Columbus, Kansas, Columbus, Kentucky, Columbus, Mississippi, Columbus, Montana, Columbus, North Dakota, Columbus, Pennsylvania, Columbus, Texas, Columbus, Wisconsin. That spreads the conversational possibilities to 15 other states. Remember, as a quotable notable once said, no man would listen to you talk if he didn't know it was his turn next. A postscript to the hellish experience I had with Columbus. Months later, I mentioned the trauma to my speaker friend from Columbus, Jeff. Jeff explained his house was really in a smaller town just minutes outside Columbus. What town, Jeff? Gahanna, Ohio. Gehenna means hell in Hebrew. And he went on to explain why he thought ancient Hebrew historians were clairvoyant. Thanks, Jeff. I knew you'd never lay a naked city on any of your listeners.
Chapter 16. Never the Naked Job. Answering the Inevitable. Third only to death and taxes is the assurance a new acquaintance will soon chirp, and what do you do? Is it fitting and proper they should make that query? We'll pick up that sticky wicket later. For the moment, these few defensive moves help you keep your crackerjack communicator credentials when asked the inevitable. First, like never the naked city, don't toss a short shrift answer in response to the asker's breathless inquiry. You leave the poor fish flopping on the deck when you just say your title. I'm an actuary, an auditor, an author, an astrophysicist. Have mercy so he or she doesn't feel like a nincompoop outsider asking, what are kind of actuating, auditing, authoring, or astrophysicing do you do? You're a lawyer. Don't leave it to laymen to try to figure out what you really do. Flesh it out. Tell a little story your conversation partner can get a handle on. For example, if you're talking with a young mother, say, I'm a lawyer. Our firm specializes in employment law. In fact, now I'm involved in a case where a company actually discharged a woman for taking extra maternity leave that was a medical necessity. A mother can relate to that. Talking with a business owner? Say, I'm a lawyer. Our firm specializes in employment law. My current case concerns an employer who is being sued by one of her staff for asking personal questions during the initial job interview. A business owner can relate to that. Technique 16. Never the naked job. When asked the inevitable, and what do you do? You may think, I'm an economist, an educator, an engineer, is giving enough information to engender good conversation. However, to one who is not an economist, educator, or an engineer, you might as well be saying, I'm a paleontologist, psychoanalyst, or pornographer. Flesh it out. Throw out some delicious facts about your job for new acquaintances to munch on. Otherwise, they'll soon excuse themselves, preferring the snacks back at the cheese tray. Painful memories of naked job flashers. I still harbor painful recollections of being tongue-tied when confronted by naked job flashers. Like the time a fellow at a dinner party told me, I'm a nuclear scientist. My weak, oh, that must be fascinating, reduced me to a mental molecule in his eyes. The chap on my other side announced, I'm in industrial abrasives, and then paused, waiting for me to be impressed. My, golly, you must have to be a shrewd judge of character to be in industrial abrasives, didn't fly either. We three sat in silence for the rest of the meal. Just last month, a new acquaintance bragged, I'm planning to teach Tibetan Buddhism at Truckee Meadows Community College, and then clammed up. I knew less about Truckee Meadows than I did about Tibetan Buddhism. Whenever people ask you what you do, give them some mouth-to-ear resuscitation so they can catch their breath and say something.
Now, it end, guys. Thanks you for watching and listening.